anybody, regardless of their criminal history, regardless of their physical anatomy, is able to transfer into the women's prison. A person with an extensive criminal history who is serving a life sentence was able to transfer in just based on gender self-ID, self-identification, meaning I am now a woman, transferred into the largest women's prison in California and has now been transferred back to men's prison because of 2 rapes that happened back to back. Nobody signed up for this. Nobody was sentenced to this additional form of punishment. We really don't have women's prisons anymore. If you think about it, we have men's prisons and everyone else's prisons. This is the agenda for the rest of womankind in the free world. This can't happen out there because they're not going to survive.
This is the City of God podcast, where Christ meets culture. Women are being assaulted, impregnated, and silenced inside of America's prisons, and almost no one is talking about it. As extreme as that may sound, it's the reality facing incarcerated women across the country. Today's guest is Amie Ichikawa, a former inmate turned national advocate who is exposing one of the most disturbing human rights crises of our time: biological men being transferred into women's prisons under gender self-identification policies. Today, you'll hear Amie's chilling first-hand account on the brutal conditions and unintended consequences that have come from new laws that allow male inmates, regardless of their criminal history, to access women's prisons. Amie is the founder of Woman to Woman, a nationwide ministry and advocacy organization working to defend the dignity, safety, and human rights of incarcerated women and to bring truth and accountability to a system operating in darkness. You can listen to this episode of The City of God on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And there's a video version that you can watch on Coral Ridge Ministries streaming platform at crm.tv or on the Coral Ridge Ministries YouTube channel. If you find this conversation important, would you pause and leave a 5-star review? It helps more people discover our biblically grounded content. And be sure to follow the show on Instagram at Coral Ridge Min or follow me at Rob Pacienza. Now, please welcome Amie Ichikawa to the City of God. Amie, thank you so much for being on the City of God podcast today. God has positioned you and put you, given you an incredible ministry, being an advocate for women's rights and really safety in the prison system. This issue of biological males being allowed into prisons with women, what really exposed you to the dangers, the realities of what was happening in our prison system, and what led you to do something about it?
Well, when I was in prison in 2009, there was a convicted serial rapist that was transferred into the women's prison, and it was an isolated incident, but it always was in the back of my head. And in 2019, California passed a law that allowed for anybody to gender self-ID in state custody and gain access to the women's prisons. At that point, I started getting letters, emails, phone calls from tons of women, hundreds of women that I'd never even met before, at an alarming rate, and they were completely distressed. So at that point, I had to really shift gears and take this on as the, human rights crisis that it really is.
Wow. So for our audience that might be new to this controversy, which really shouldn't be a controversy at all, it's common sense. Right. But share with our audience just 2 stories or 2 examples that really illustrate what's happening because of the policies, the current policies, or maybe the lack thereof of common sense policies when it comes to protecting women in prison.
Well, under the, current policies that are nationwide, these are federal policies and stateside as well. Anybody, regardless of their criminal history, regardless of their physical anatomy, is able to transfer into the women's prison. There aren't one of the most disturbing situations is a person with an extensive criminal history who is serving a life sentence was able to transfer in just based on gender self-ID, self-identification, meaning I am now a woman, transferred into the largest women's prison in California and has now been transferred back to men's prison because of 2 rapes that happened back to back that the district attorney picked up and is the judge actually granted this individual their request to be referred to with female pronouns in their rape case. Both victims, I have spoken to both, and it's extremely unnerving just to know that this is not, nobody signed up for this. Nobody was sentenced to this additional form of punishment. That's one of the worst cases. There's pregnancies. This same individual is the father of a baby. This is happening on taxpayer dollars. This is happening under the watch of the Department of Corrections. This individual also got another woman pregnant and beat her until she miscarried. So this is happening in front of the entire female population, and whether or not it's happening to them directly, it's impacting them all at an alarming rate. Everybody's starting to display symptoms of complex PTSD. This is like irreparable damage that we're doing here.
So, Amie, you just don't get here overnight. No. Where did this come from? How did this begin? How are we in a spot as a nation that would actually allow this to happen in the 21st century?
Incarcerated women are a sector of the population that is constantly overlooked. They're commonly in political games. It's very easy to use them as pawns in this game, especially in California, where it's always a power play. This is an agenda that's been in the works for a really long time. If you look back at, the March on Washington in 1993 and 1972, there were different parts of an agenda that specifically stated that transgender inmates should be treated differently and treated as if they don't have a mental health condition, that they should actually be freed. This has been in the works for decades, and it's easy to start movements within the prison system because most people aren't generally paying attention to this, and rightfully so. If you're not system impacted, why would you pay attention to this? But my call is that we have to pay attention to this because this is where the real agendas begin, because these are a sector of society that people don't pay attention to, but we have to. We're called to, and people have to know that if we don't pay attention, these things that are happening to the people in prison are going to spill over into the free world, and this is what we have to look forward to if we don't stop this where it is right now.
Amie, you're traveling the country, you're speaking up about this, you're an advocate. You don't even need to be a Christian to understand how devastating this is to women, to the protection of women, to honoring the dignity of a woman. This is just common sense. This is just basic human rights. So when you travel, when you speak up about this, and you get any pushback at all, what's the rationale that's being used to justify the pure ignorance and just the attitude towards maybe just a refusal to protect women's dignity and rights?
It's constantly turned around that the men who identify as women are the true victims here, that women are liars, that this isn't really happening, that I'm just a hateful bigot. I'm a nebulous white supremacist, or there's a lot of ways that they turn this around. But they constantly say that they're the real victims. They're the ones who are being discriminated against, and that we need to be more accepting and kind. And they turn things around to where, there's been a lot of soft programming involved. Look at, there's different shows on television that have really portrayed these individuals as delicate flowers, when in fact, those are not the kind of people that are transferring into the women's prisons. These are just regular, fully intact men. These are men who have nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else for them to safely do their time because they burned out every other yard, they owe debts, they're wanted by, other inmate groups, but that's still not incarcerated women's responsibility to keep them safe. And there's no reason why we should have to compromise one person's safety for another person's. They have big enough budgets to keep everybody safe.
It's absurd. It's absurd. Amie, you're not only traveling the country as an advocate, but I would imagine you're speaking to women that have they're out of prison, or even women inside of prison. What are the stories you're hearing? What are the I think for our audience to understand the long-term trauma and ramifications that these women will experience and continue to experience in life. What are you hearing firsthand?
Well, you got to keep in mind 92% of incarcerated women are survivors of some form of abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse. They're all very much broken.
Yeah.
So to put them in the same situation of a lot of their original traumas is so abusive. There's women who are being housed with men who look just like the men who abused them as children. There's situations where there's men who were actually living in the same towns or with the same crime families that abused them as children that are transferring in and watching these women sleep. There's no privacy. They have no dignity. They're having to shower and sleep and toilet in mixed sex housing. We really don't have women's prisons anymore. If you think about it, we have men's prisons and everyone else's prisons.
Yeah.
It's not fair. It's just these women have been it long enough, and it's time to really prioritize their safety, because this is the agenda for the rest of womankind in the free world. And
Absolutely.
They have even expressed to me, women in the free world this can't happen out there because they're not going to survive.
Right. I'm sure they feel abandoned too.
Yes.
A system that is meant to protect, administer justice, use the word fairness, being absolutely betrayed by our government and by the system of justice, or in this case, injustice in America right now.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
When I was inside, people didn't believe me. I'd call home every day, and my parents thought I was losing my mind, until it finally came out in the newspaper that there really was a repeat sex offender that was transferred in and living amongst us just as a woman.
So you've clearly been motivated and compelled. I don't believe this is just a human calling. I believe this is a divine calling, but you've been called to do something about this. Describe for our audience your organization and what you're actively doing daily to push back.
Oh, my organization is called Woman to Woman. It was founded with two of my partners, one who served 25 years and another who served 17. And we started in 2019, and by 2020, I said, hey, you guys, I forgot to dedicate our organization to the Lord. And that's when things really started to turn around. It didn't get easier, but it definitely got better. It gave us our mission, and we really established that our belief is that true rehabilitation comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That the only person who can really heal the wounds that incarcerated women carry is Jesus. Yeah. We try and push that and provide that as an alternative to what is being poisoned in the prison system right now. There's so much Marxism that is rampantly running through the carceral system, and we just want to, soothe that with the love of Jesus. And it's nationwide. We get calls from women in almost every state, and when we started getting calls from the federal prisons, that's when we knew this is bigger. This is bigger than we ever imagined.
Yeah.
We really thought it was isolated to California, and it's not.
It's nationwide. They can find your website and your Women to Women where can I find information?
www.womaniwoman.org.
Womanii.org. When you think about the future, and as you're having these conversations, is there anything that is giving you hope as you're shining light in the midst of a very dark situation?
That our battles are won. We just keep focusing on the fact that our battles are won, and our only job is to continue to show up every day. We keep our eyes on Jesus, because, if the birds don't have to worry about what they're wearing in the morning, neither do we.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what keeps us grounded.
That's a good word, and I love how you brought it back to the ideology of Marxism. I often tell our congregation this is not an issue between right versus left or a political battle. This is a spiritual battle a battle of ideologies, a battle of worldviews, and in this case, a secular, godless, Marxist, atheistic
Yes.
worldview that has corrupted our culture and infiltrated the justice system here in America. And we need more truth tellers like you that are shining light in the midst of darkness. Last question. Yeah, you're sitting across from a lawmaker, policymaker. What's your message to them?
Love is free. And if these issues were approached from a place of love, they wouldn't be that difficult to quell. It wouldn't be that difficult to ensure that everybody who's in prison is treated with respect, agency, and dignity if we were approaching things from a place of love. And I know that sounds so crazy to think that we have to love killers and rapists and kidnappers, but
it's the Imago Dei. It's image of God in all people.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Amie, we're grateful for you. Grateful for Women to Women. We pray that our audience would find out more by going to your website, but most importantly, to pray for you, as I'm sure at times you feel like you are a voice in the wilderness, and know that we will be praying for you and be talking off camera ways that we can support you as well. So God bless you in fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
It's easy to turn a blind eye to injustices that happen in places we rarely see. So I hope Amie's story and advocacy moves your heart and stirs your spirit to defend and advocate for women living in injustice within our prison system. I know that God is using Amie to shine a light on the darkness, and I'm grateful she took the time to join us here on the City of God. We release new episodes weekly, so make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. This City of God podcast is produced by Coral Ridge Ministries and made in partnership with the Institute for Faith and Culture. This is the City of God podcast, where Christ meets culture.